Okay, Roger once again, Mudfossil University. Today we are going to show you how to find as much gold as you would like. It's all over the place, just hasn't been understood. This is a foot from I believe it's from a no-toe, which is a new species we discovered. I discovered 6 years ago, and this is literally where the toes come out. And these are the longer ones. This is what they call a fibula. It rocks, it holds right in there. And that comes up against what it would cradle here is the tibia. And between those two bones, your foot can articulate back and forth. Now, the no-toes have two big, long things coming out the back. I don't know what to say. They're long, and they are... there's a structure coming out the back of them. Now, let's see if I can show you what I'm talking about. Well, I don't have that. Well, here's one right here. Now, this is the no-toes, and they have a spring assembly in here. It's the strangest thing. It's totally different than our feet. The toes are enclosed in the, and they have all these pins, and they're enclosed in the flesh. Now, this comes way out the back, as you could see in the other one that was the gold one. So this is what I'm saying collects. Now, the bottom, there's a pad. These things are like this deep. I mean, they are absolutely enormous. And there's a big, huge rubber pad that bolts on the bottom. I believe it's called gumite. I'm serious. And it's not like the normal, well, here it is right here. You see this pad right there? You see this? That's the pad that literally bolts on there. It's some kind of a yellow gummy stuff. That's the heel bone, and that's another no-toe, big, huge no-toe. And you see these pads here? You'll see these in the one that had turned to gold. Should be showing shortly. But this would have been completely covered. Unbelievable. And you can see there's a whole different texture to the material, and it does not absorb gold. And you'll see this coming up. This is one of the no-toes that has completely eroded all the rubber stuff on the bottom. And I mean, I think they're some kind of cyborg. You see that? It looks like a wing nut to me. That's all I can say. And they come with this huge arch, and they have these a set of springs that sit right in here, torsion springs. And I've shown this over and over and over. And I have videos on all that stuff. Where is it? Anyway, this is the ones I found, and the toes are inside there. They don't come out. I mean, they're in there, and we have them shown eroded, but they don't normally show exposed. What else? This is a toe, and that's the vein side. It plugs up. It can't blow out, and this is the arterial side. It fills up in all the little vessels and veins, but it does blow out. That's the apical tuft. So this is something that we're going to go over here right now. We're going to start looking into this with a little more detail. And something I want you to understand. Don't listen to geology. Geology is 100% incorrect. 100% as far from reality as anything could possibly be. Every single thing on the face of the planet and in space is organic. I'm going to make that statement. Anybody prove me wrong? I'd love to see it. Because everything that's coming through space is organic in nature. I could prove this 100%. Nobody else can come even close to proving what I can prove on that. No question whatsoever. The meteorites all have veins and arteries. Chondritic meteorites are lungs. Iron meteorites are lungs and hearts that have smelted coming through. There is still gold in them, and I mean there's still blood in them. This is what they call granite. This is not granite. This is crushed rock, which is, the rock was originally a creature, and they crushed it up and to take all the metals out, and they missed this little tiny piece. These are little bits and chunks of connective tissue, of tendons and bone-ish material, CaCO3. This reddish looking stuff is rust, and everybody in the mud fossil community understands that is FeO3 blood, is a red blood. It never really turns into chunks. This is different. The black blood comes right out of the veins in these chunks. That's a vein somebody broke up with some big thing that smashed up stones. They chunked it all up into a homogeneous mass. They fed it with salts and acids, and they sucked off. They ran it through was probably water and who knows what else until all of these particulates separated out with the metals. Either they dropped to the floor, or they somehow got them out of there. Because you see all kind of scale and all kind of the things. Oxidation happens to it, and it separates. So somehow they separated it out. Let me put it that way. They missed this little piece, and this is my countertop, and this was sold to me as natural granite. Oh yeah, it's a natural creature. I said, no, it's not. Oh yes, it is. Oh yes, it is. Well, whoever cares. It's the only piece of metal I can find at 30 feet of countertop. It's not. It has nothing to do with natural stone. Anyway, we're going to go through all this, and you see how to find gold. It's all over the place in the notos. I've been showing this for months and months and months, and I have nothing to do with it. I don't want any money. I don't. Just if you'd like to do that, fine. I just want to show you this. It's not all it's made out to be, and I have other alternative motives. It's nothing I have nothing to do with this as far as money goes. Put it that way. So don't think that I'm trying to make any money at it or have any. The money part of it has no influence over it. Let me put it that way. I'm just saying these things, so don't come after me. Oh, you said this, you said that. Well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I'm showing you what I'm showing you. All right, you see that? That is a gold foot. That is a gold foot. And I will show you why I can make that statement. I have the same type of foot here, not gold, but it shows the architecture and why this has done what it does. Now, this is like a tough section. The reason this part here looks recessed is that there's a pad that literally glues and bolts to the bottom of these right from this center spot here, and I believe it's called gumite, and apparently it does not adhere to the gold and pushes the gold up, but everything that has a different type of organic chemistry to it absorbs the gold. Now let me show you why I make that statement. Here is, I need to get my light, and I will show you right here what I have that is the same as that. Now let's see if I can make this work. Alright. You see what we were just seeing a minute ago? I'm going to bring them together and I'll show you. Let's look at that bump and that bump right there, so we can see those. All right. This is my no-toe right here. This is the same type of foot as that. And there's that pad, and there's that pad. This and blows off. That should have been filled out and bubbled up like this. That's what's called a no-toe. This is a new species that we discovered. I discovered it 6 years ago, and now they're coming in from all over the world. Now, but you can see that this it is that bump is right here. I mean, it is, and this bump is right there. The rest was a pad that sits on here. There's still some of it left here. There's other ones that one of the researchers out in Missouri, Tish, found that all of that stuff, that the pads are completely off, and you can see this in its complete disassembled condition. All of the gumite is gone, and most of the blood is gone. Mine are literally like brand new, and I will show you the blood vessels in the feet that well, we'll go through that later. But the other thing that I want to show you here is this particular bit of architecture here. That is this, and they all have this at the very tip. It's called an apical tuft. Now, it's on fingertips. It's the apical tuft, and it has these holes and these little plugs that hold on to tendon balls. And all these were the little tendon balls were in there that were holding to straps. Now these feet I think are different than our feet. You see how the toes sort of come over the top? There's little bubble pads underneath, and just like mine here, they will have them inside. It's not something that the toes aren't separated in these. And there's springs on the side of them, but that's a different story. The gold, there was copious amounts of gold, and they run down to where the lowest part of your anatomy was that had the arterial blood flowing. It settles in the deepest part of the arteries. So if the guy died laying on his side and his hand was sticking out and it was lower, he's going to have fingers full of gold. If he was standing up in the mud and died standing in the mud, which all these giants did literally, because they tried to stand up and live, and sooner or later they drowned or starved to death or whatever happened, but by that time they're stuck in the mud floating literally, buoyant. And then nothing else can happen, but the transition metals and the organic stuff in the body becomes part of the solution of the ocean waters, and which doesn't explode the body now, so it doesn't explode. It becomes waterlogged, but it's standing, and the veins, the arteries are a direct path to the feet. That's what happens. And metals, doesn't just happen with gold. Now I have them with metals. You see this? This is, I don't know what kind of metal, I can tell you that. Haven't had it analyzed, but there's a little bit of, here, let me get this other light. There's a little bit of bone left here. Well, I don't know if it's bone, but it is that bony structure in the back here. Let's see if we can do that. All right, so this is a toe. This is a toe. Here, let me put it in its correct orientation. All right, that's the way it should be. That's the orientation. Now, from the back here is where you have that bony little thing on the bottom here. All right, that is all that's left of the organic bony stuff. Now, everything else has been replaced by this metal, and I believe this is the ancients used to call it auriculum or something like that. Now that's the blood from the arterial side. See? And the vein side, see these two bumps here? That's where the vein side can't blow out. The vein side can't blow out. It creates those two lumps on the side. And I've got a gold finger that has two complete lumps on the side. And you can see where all the blood coming through the side here is trying to feed it over to the veins. I'll show you that. Very, very cool. Solid gold. All right, so that's what happens to these things. Okay, I need to make a statement because I am being used here, I believe. I am bringing the true knowledge and the factual information that proves the things that I am saying. I show the facts. I show the chemistry. I show, and I I had them done. I do myself. Certified labs did it, but the DNA analysis, 3 of them, CAT scans, 7 of them. Certified anatomist who owns his own autopsy school, verifies every single word I'm saying. The chemistry, so forth. However, I get 50 hits, 100 hits, 1,000 hits after months. And I go to these other places, they're absolute foolishness that has nothing to do with reality, but a lot of music and talking about a lot of things that are just impossible, and everybody eats it up. And there's hundreds of thousands of hits. So I guess that's the way people are nowadays. So if you're that kind of a person, good for you. But I think you should start talking to people because it's kind of frustrating to me to be in this condition and being ignored, and everybody else is, people think that they have something special because they don't get into any of the details. So, that's all I have to say. All right, this is the perfect example. The blood comes down through the arterial side, and it gets blown out through these, and on the end there's a little blowout. It tries to force it into the veins to go back up, but because you're dead, the veins have clamped off, so they collect in these little lumps on the side, just exactly like I showed you on this one here, how hold on, it collects just like this. You see, this side blows out, but these collect, the lumps over here collect. And I have a number of them like that. You know, they're not gold, I don't think, inside, but they are the collection of the minerals and so forth that came down and collected there, just like that. Okay, this is probably one of the best examples I have of how blood flows into these toes and feet and so forth. Now, if you can look at the two little holes, where is my pointer? I cannot find it. Here it is. You see that one? That's the red blood hole. You see the red blood around here? You see those metals? This one here, this is where you have your vein, which is your dark blood, the black blood. It's the deoxygenated. It's called FeO2, ferrous oxide O2 variety, and this is ferrous oxide O3. What happens is this red blood comes down here, and it comes down here forcefully and presses itself through all these little tiny blood vessels that are in your skin, or in your tissue. All your tissue has these little blood vessels because they need to be nurtured and to be brought the things of life, the oxygen and so forth. So it forces it through these little tiny things, and by the time it gets here, it doesn't have any oxygen left. So it gets sucked back up to the heart and lungs to be reoxygenated. Now, I'm going to move this around a little bit and give you a little different perspective on this. Now, let me turn the light down a smidge. That's better. Now, you see right there, that little hole right there, and that's the gold and everything that flows out from the blood. All right, let me back this up a little bit. Now, and this is the whole toe, comes up to here. You see how all these crazy looking colors and things? That's all the minerals and metals that are, well, it's mostly the metals because those are the things that have the colors, the transition metals. But they come down in these tissues. You see that? Isn't that interesting? Now look at this. Watch down the bottom. This is the bottom where the blood comes in. All right? It's pretty obvious of what you're seeing. All right? This side over here is where the oxygenated blood comes down, the red blood. Over here is where the vein comes back towards the heart. Now, on the bottom, you see, this is the top of the toe. Now, as this leaked out of here, this guy was standing down this way, and I can prove this. He was standing up, and that's why this blood and the metals and the gold flowed here. And the reason I can prove it is for the other side of the toe is where you can see the blood has collected and congealed underneath. So we know the guy was standing up, just exactly what I've been saying for years. Now, and now we're seeing it really in a full foot of gold. I mean, that thing just blew me away when I saw it. Anyway, this is the kind of thing, and the blood turns into garnets. And that I also can prove. Blood is garniferous. It turns into these little garnets and things, all different colors. Garnets have every single color there is. Now here's a toe, no, a fingertip. Let's see. You see that? Let me put it down here and see if I can get a good shot at this. Let me put it on a background that's a little more obvious. Well, this will be all right. All right, you see this? That's a fingertip. All right, at the end here is where the arterial side blew out. And those are all garnets. And you can see there's some that are they might have broke off by now. Hold on a second, let me pull this on. Oops, way too late. Put your sunglasses on. Hold on. Alright, there we go. You see that? That's what happens on the end. when it blows out the blood. Having a hard time home. But see, these are those are little, like we call them gemstones. They're all of the different blood will turn into different colored crystals as it leaches out of the body and crystallizes. And this is what lungs do. Here, you see this? The inside of the lungs is where you find your crystals. And if you get a good sized lung in some of these giants, I mean, the crystals are unbelievable. And they're all different colors, you see? And that's because there's different metals attached to them. This is a little lung cut across, crosswise. But there's the blood is passing around all of these little, what have now turned into crystals. Here's one that, it's around here somewhere. Here it is. This one here is a lung. There we go. Now you see that? That's what happens to lungs. They make crystals, and I mean some of them are spectacular. I'm just sort of bouncing around here, but this is just a little lung, and so, but the crystals that they grow, and they call these concretions, and they are not concretions. These are lungs. 100%, I can guarantee that, my friends. 100%. Now, there are other concretions that are actually concretions, but this is not. And most are not that they claim are. Which geology is 100% wrong. So if you come here thinking geology is correct, you are in a total misconception, which you need to re-examine to enter reality. That's a little tiny lung. That's the thing I was showing you a second ago. So let's go into some deeper stuff. And but my point is things are not correct what they're telling you. It's absolutely silly, the stories they're making up about these rocks. They make no sense whatsoever. All right, this is the foot blood supply. What happens is, as I showed on my toe, it comes down here, blows right out of there. This guy must have, the one I had, it ended up the blood coming down, running to his toe. He might have died with his toe in the lowest position. Now, I showed also the way the blood blows out one side or the other. Now, this is where the blood normally collects at the bottom. As it comes straight down and then it comes this way, it will pile up there. That's because it's heavier than everything else. It's not as fluid. Now, this shows the arterial network inside, and here's my foot. You can see what happens with the blood. It takes, you see this curve right here? Same thing. That's the same curve as this curve. Now, and all of the blood, you see the blood that's running here? I don't know if you can see, it's still a little bit of red there, here and there. Little tiny bit of red. The black is the FeO2 blood. This is where the fibula was. All right, the fibula was right there. I'm sorry. The tibia was right here. The fibula was right here. All right, so your tibia, the big bone that comes down here, and it saddles back and forth, and it rocks around. And this one here is where your fibula was. And that it just lays on the side and lets your foot do this more or less. And they fall right off. And there's a particular way, if you could see this in the correct light and the correct moisture, you can see where the bone still comes down, and that's where the heel bone is, and that's the stuff that collects the gold in these places where these big chunks are. All right, this is a gold ram's horn, they call it. Now notice the structure coming down this way and swishing over here, and you can actually see some red blood in here. There is actually still some, they would call it ferrous oxide. I call it red blood. Now, you just saw that ram's horn. Here's what it is. This is it. It comes down, and as it turns here, a little piece will collect over here, maybe a little bit of stick out here, a little over here, and it collects in that little curve, and then it starts getting smaller and smaller as it comes out. And that's exactly like in plumbing. It just jams up because it's coming from above, down from the guy's body standing, and it hits here and it collects. Now, this is the arterial stuff, and then it comes over into the vein side, where in us it looks blue. In mud fossils it's black. It has a little more oxygen, I believe, and it turns into a hard iron. This, in the iron stage, the FeO3 stage, where you see red blood and you see red dust and you see red ochre, that's blood. And that never really hardens up like the FeO2 blood, the black iron. This is hard. That stuff doesn't harden up. And I can show you that as they mine underneath the Great Lakes. They're mining salt. It is the flesh of giant creatures, and they are removing iron from it. I will show you that right now. Okay, all my mud fossil friends, you know exactly what this is. This is tissues of the body. This is not volcanic layers. This is the tissue layers of the body. There are connective tissues within here, and there. Then these are the red blood signatures, which are the investments, vessels that go in through the tissues to supply them with nutrients and oxygen and so forth. And this is the return, which is the black vein blood that takes the blood back up to the heart and lungs. This turns extremely hard. FeO2, the black is hard. It's like iron. And this FeO3 is not hard. It's like rust. It's like when you see powdery rust. Totally different outcome with just an extra oxygen. It's all chemistry, really. I mean, I love chemistry. And this is all salt, and this is underneath the Great Lakes. This is not in your backyard. These guys are underneath the Great Lakes digging this stuff out. So think about that, my friends. And I know why it's underneath the Great Lakes, because the Great Lakes, inside the Great Lakes is skin. Nothing carved that out with glaciers. It is skin. They did a thing on draining the Great Lakes, and it is skin and organic biological tissues, and that's why the mussels and so forth are underneath the Great Lakes and have the salt in them. Alright, there's another gold finger, and that's basically this. That really literally is that lump out. It's a tendon ball, and you can see these holes. They're filled in here. It's like this thing laying this way. Alright, you see how the big lump is over here, how this is the same thing, a big lump, and it blows out all this little stuff here. I don't know if you can see how. In other words, this is the lumpy side that's over here, which is your vein side, and this is your arterial side, which that stuff blows right out, like this here, see it? That's what's called an apical tuft. These were gigantic creatures. Gigantic. Okay, this is a gold finger, I believe. It could be a toe, but I believe it's a finger. Now that right there, you see this dark blood? That's the vein blood, and that is literally the vein. And it plugs up because it can't go any further. There's actual valves in there. They call them vein valves, and they stop the veins from moving blood once there's you die or they break, or there's a break in them. Arteries are different. You cut an artery and it just squirts like crazy. They come down with a tremendous amount of pressure, and into the extremities and the fingers and the toes, extreme amount of blood. Now, it's just obvious what it is. This tip is the apical tuft tip of the tendon ball that's on the. These are like the pads of the finger. You have them on your fingers too, and your toes. Now, I have one here that is not gold, but it is the same, basically same situation. Hold on, let's get up here and see if I can get a better shot at that. All right, I have it right here, and this one here, as you can see, that's the same. That's the blood sticking out the side. That's what they do. Alright, this side blew out. This is where you can see a little bit of red blood. That blows right out, bloop, 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 because there's no restrictions. These clamp off, and they protect. Not the one at the bottom or the one at the top tipped off, but that's what it is. And they all have that apical tuft. A little tip on the top, and there it is. There's not much you can miss there. There's the same thing here. Alright, these are mud fossils. And they're all from creatures. Every single thing that you see, there's not a thing that you're looking at on the ground or everywhere. Every single thing is either biology of some nature, creature, or plants, slime, whatever you want to call it. Water, now they found out, has a memory, and it's literally alive. I have always suspected that something in your body is telling all the molecules what to do. They're not just bumping into each other by accident. Something there is directing the show. And they talk about just evolution. It's just the weakest minded response to what we see, that you could come, yeah, well, that means, well, it just happened. Well, there was a lot written about how it happened, so I think we should go back and look at that to see maybe it makes sense, because I think it does. I know it does. And you have all the gold you want. There is tons of gold at your fingertips just waiting if you want it. I never had any desire for it, so maybe you want it.